in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. I apologize for the last couple of weeks. We had some technical difficulties in getting this class broadcast. And so what I'm planning to do is sometime this week I'll post the lessons that we had in the previous chapters of Samuel so that everybody can stay current. But we are going to be covering chapter 16 in 1 Samuel, beginning now at verse 14. And this is where David infiltrates the court of Saul. Okay. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. Where does the Lord get an evil spirit? How is it that the Lord is using evil spirits? Should that be happening?
The Lord's in a human state at this present time.
The Lord is not in the human state at this time. He's in the Old Testament.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So
The serpent from Adam and Eve.
we got the serpent from Adam and Eve. Okay, what we have in the Old Testament is something very hard for Christians especially to wrap their minds around. And that is that God uses both good and evil for his purposes. So if God needs an evil spirit, by golly, you're going to get an evil spirit. And but you know, we pray in the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation, but here God is actively tormenting Saul. So I don't know, it just gives you something to think about. Okay? But Saul is being tormented. I really feel bad for Saul. I like Saul, by and large. He's a guy who didn't want to be king in the first place, and maybe he wasn't so good at the job, but he didn't really have a lot of help. And the people who were supposed to support him did not support him, and you know, and we're going to find even worse, because he's just, Samuel's gone out and anointed David to replace Saul and Saul's lineage. So basically you've got God committing a coup against the guy that he installed as king. Crazy stuff. We don't see that God is all that different from people in the Old Testament. Kind of close. Okay, so he sends an evil spirit to torment him. And Saul's servant said to him, "See now, an evil spirit from God is tormenting you." Well, of course, if we were looking at it today, and we go through the things that Saul has gone through, he's king and he doesn't want to be king. He's blown it as far as Samuel's concerned. He's not going to get any forgiveness from God. What we would call that is clinical depression. And if he could take a pill, he might have been a better king. But he couldn't take a pill. He had an evil spirit as far as everybody else is concerned. But you know, we are very much more clever with our diagnosis these days. And we kind of write off evil spirits, even though I've seen some from time to time. Okay. Lord, let our Lord now command the servant to attend you to look for someone who is skillful in playing the lyre. That's L-Y-R-E, not L-I-R-E. A-R-E. Okay. And when the evil spirit from God is upon you, he will play it and you will feel better. Music therapy. So Saul said to his servants, "Provide for me someone who can play well and bring him to me." One of the young men answered, "I have seen a son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a warrior, prudent in speech, and a man of good presence, and the Lord is with him." All right, now that blows everything that we ever thought about David, because we always thought, here's this kid David that's brought into the court of Saul, and he's playing the lyre, and he's very skillful, and he's a grown man, and he's a warrior. When was David in a fight before this? Okay, the first fight that we know about David was Goliath, right? Okay, but he's already designated a warrior. So here we have a conflict going on between, especially a conflict going on between chapter 16 and what we'll get into in 17, about the age of David, who he is, where he belongs in Saul's court, okay? So Saul sent a messenger to Jesse and said, "Send your son David, who is with the sheep." So David's still a shepherd, because he's the youngest offspring, okay? Okay. Jesse took a donkey, loaded it with bread, a skin of wine, and a kid sent them by his son David to Saul. You would think that if David is going to get a job with the king, that the king would be the one who was paying him. Okay, but Jesse sends all this stuff to the king, maybe just to sweeten the pot for his son to get a job. All right. And David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. Well, you know, you don't get that job. You don't get that job as an armor bearer unless you've been out there and you've excelled in battle. That is the qualification for being the armor bearer. It isn't because I really like the way this kid looks, or, you know, a DEI hire. If you went out there and you started slaughtering people, you could become an armor bearer, because that's how the job description went. Okay? Because you're talking about the Secret Service. Okay? If you're the armor bearer, you are the King's Secret Service. So you don't just, until lately, you don't just give that job to anybody. Okay? All right. Saul sent to Jesse, saying, "Let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight." And whenever the evil spirit of came upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hand, and Saul would be relieved and feel better, and the evil spirit would depart from him. Okay. Now, if you are the king, and you have a guy who plays the lyre and cheers you up, okay, and he becomes your armor bearer, he's not going to go home and tend sheep. He's going to be there right next to the king's throne all the time, wherever the king is. I mean, he's like the guy with the football. He's going to be there wherever the king is, okay? But we get into chapter 17 and just a whole different look at David. Okay. Or maybe the events of chapter 17 are the events that caused him to become the armor bearer. Right? Okay.
When you say playing the lyre, I got NLT version and it says play the harp.
That's what a lyre is. It's a harp. It's a small one. Okay? You can sit it on your lap, strum it like a guitar.
Cool.
Yep. Okay. And Scott's a new guy in our class. We're happy to have him. Scott, anytime, and we do this all the time because people have different translations, okay? And anytime your translation doesn't match up with my translation, bring it up. That's no problem at all. Glad to have that. The translation I'm using is the New Revised Standard Version, okay? And from my experience, as far as it gets, the New Revised Standard Version does probably the best job of taking ancient texts and putting them into English. Not always as readable as the translation you got, but it is very readable. And the other thing that I like about the New Revised Standard Version is that whenever there's a controversy about what the text might mean, and there should be, there always is, you can find it in the footnotes of that translation. So that's the Oxford annotated version of the New Revised Standard Version has the footnotes, so you can see where, well, it could be this or it could be that, and you know. But it's good to know that a word might not be translated exactly that way. It could be one or the other. Okay, now this is a really familiar chapter to everybody. Anybody who's been in Sunday school knows the story of David and Goliath. Am I right? Okay. So we always use this David and Goliath analogy because you got a little guy fighting a big guy, and it's a fun story in a way, unless you're Goliath, and we'll just see what happens. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle. They were gathered at Sokoh, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Sokoh and Azekah in Ephes Damim. Saul and the Israelites gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah, and formed ranks against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and the Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. Well, here's the dilemma, okay? When it comes to battlefields, The best place, especially in ancient warfare or in modern military, if it's a tank warfare, you want the flat ground, you don't want the mountains, okay? But, generally speaking, the army that holds the high ground is the army that's got the advantage. So you got one army on one mountain and another army on another mountain and a plain down the bottom where they can fight, but neither one of them wants to give up the high ground to the other one.
At the high ground, you see what's,
You can see what's
see
coming.
what's everything.
That's exactly right. High ground, and you know what? Even today, that still counts. Okay, so there we go. The Philistines stood on the mountain one side, Israel on the other side. Okay. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 4 cubits and a span. I can't tell you exactly. A cubit is from the tip of your finger to your elbow. That's a cubit. Okay? Except that we don't know whose arm they were using.
NLT says 9 feet tall.
9 feet. Well,
This one says 6 cubits.
6 cubits. Okay? Well, here, well, that's one of those pays your money, takes your choice things, okay? So we get into this later, you'll see. You can play with it. Okay. A span is thumb to pinky. Okay? All right. I'll do thumb to pinky like that. There we go. Get it on the camera. Okay. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. Now that's like chain, okay? Very small rings of chain, and you started seeing this when they started using iron. You didn't have bronze mail that much, but you did have iron. Iron was a lot easier to work than bronze, and you could make these little links, and it took forever to make them, but chainmail was their bulletproof vest back then, okay? The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. Well, okay, so it's a coat of mail. It is made of bronze, by golly, and it weighs 5,000 shekels, which is a lot. It's a heavy thing. Normal people can't walk around with that. He had greaves of bronze on his legs. Okay, the greaves are the front plates, like you see with soccer players. Okay, that protective thing they wear on their shins, that's a greave. Okay? He had greaves of bronze on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and the spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. Well, dang, that's a lot of iron. Okay? And his shield bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, "Today I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now, Goliath was what, there's a class of human in the Old Testament called the Anatoths. And there are legends about how the Anatoths came to be. One of the legends was that an angel mated with a human, and the result was a giant. But there are several places in Philistine territory where these very, very tall people lived, and Gath was one of them. So Goliath came from a town that had giants in it. Okay, and you heard also when they came up against Jericho that there were giants in Jericho. Archaeologists have, from time to time, actually discovered some very big skeletons. Ancient skeletons. We don't see these people anymore, but they were like 10 feet tall. You know, they found them in North America, and they found them in other places in the world. So, you know, there's some credibility to this. I don't know about the origins of them, but I know that Native Americans talked about them, and they were not very nice people. Okay? Now David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah named Jesse, who had 8 sons. In the days of Saul, the man was already old and advanced in years. The eldest sons of Jesse had followed Saul to the battle. The names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went back and forth from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistines came forward and took his stand, morning and evening. Okay, so twice a day for 40 days. Now, understand that 40 days in the Old Testament just means a time of trial. So it might not have been 40 days. It was just a distressing time. Anytime they got into a problem, anytime you're going through grief, it took 40 days to go through it. So 40 is a number that has a significance other than the count of 40. Okay? Okay. Jesse said to his son David, "Take for your brothers an ephah of this parched grain and these 10 loaves and carry them quickly to the camp of your brothers. Also take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their 1,000. See how your brothers fare and bring some token from them." All right. When I was in Desert Storm, we were inundated with stuff that people sent from home. Now, David's dad sends this food, downscale food for his son. He sends them bread, okay? But for the commander, he sends cheeses. Now, why would you do that? Maybe so your commander will look out for your guys a little bit better, you know? So that was cool. So David has to take all these things down there. Now, you're getting the impression at this point that David is not really a grown man. So all of a sudden you have something out of sequence. Chapter 16, he's a grown man and a warrior. In chapter 17, he's just a kid tending sheep and ferrying stuff back and forth to the front. Okay. Okay. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. Well, they weren't actually fighting with the Philistines. They were just looking at each other. David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with a keeper, took the provisions, and went as Jesse commanded him. He came to the encampment as the army was going forth to the battle line, shouting the war cry. Now, this is what they would do. They would line up against each other, and they would see who could yell the loudest and who could seem the fiercest, and that was psyops, ancient psyops. Okay, try to demoralize the other side. Okay. David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage, ran to the ranks, and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before, and David heard him. Well, he's a young guy, and he's full of stuff and vinegar, and he thinks that maybe this is not the right thing to do. All the Israelites, when they saw the man, fled from him and were very much afraid. The Israelites said, "Have you seen the man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. The king will greatly enrich the man who kills him, and will give him his daughter and make his family free in Israel." Okay, David said to the men who stood by him, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? The people answered him the same way. So shall it be done for the man who kills him. So there are big rewards for anybody who wants to be the champion. Okay? So I don't think David is especially motivated by the incentives, although he does ask, what would I get for this? His elder brother, Eliab, heard him talking to the man, and Eliab, angered, was kindled against David. He said, "Why have you come down? With whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down just to see the battle." David said, "What have I done now? It was only a question." He turned away from him toward another and spoke the same way, and the people answered him again as before. All right, now what's going on here? You see that the elder brothers are saying, "David, you're calling us all cowards." You're saying, why isn't somebody doing this? And here these guys are the people who should be doing this, and they're not doing it, okay? So he says, you know, don't bait this guy. This guy's pretty big. When the words that David spoke were heard, they repeated them before Saul, and he sent for him. David said to Saul, let no one's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Saul said to David, you're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you're just a boy. See, now he's not just a boy here. He's not a man. So that contradicts the previous chapter, although it blends in if you're trying to give a backstory. Okay? And he's been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. I thought he was still doing that. Whenever a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it and struck it down, rescuing the lamb from its mouth. And if it turned against me, I would catch it by the jaw, strike it down, and kill it. Your servant has killed both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, since he has defied the armies of the living God. David said, the Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will save me from the hand of the Philistines. So Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. Wait a minute. Okay, he's hanging the whole fate of his army and of his people on a kid who's got a mouth. Okay? So, this is not one of his best decisions. Although it turns out okay, it's not the kind of decision that I would say. I'd say, you know, I'll tell you what, go practice against some more lions and bears and come back and see me on Tuesday. But anyway, Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a bronze helmet on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. David strapped Saul's sword over the armor, and he tried in vain to walk, for he was not used to them. This reminds me of some of the children's churches I used to do. I would bring in my combat gear from the National Guard, and when the kids came up, I said, "Now we're going to be like David and Saul." And I would take my Kevlar helmet and put it on their head, and I'd get my bulletproof vest, my Kevlar vest, and put it on them, and they were like, so yeah, they got the picture. My combat load was over 100 pounds, so. All right. Then David said to Saul, I cannot walk with these, for I'm not used to them. So David removed them, and he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the wadi and put them in his shepherd's bag in the pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistines. All right. This doesn't sound like much. People talk about David, had a sling, and that's not a great weapon. Actually, that was the heavy artillery that was used in ancient times. Your slingers were the ones who did the heavy work. Your archers shot arrows, but man, if you got hit by a rock from a slinger, you were done. Those were not small stones. They were like, softballs, okay? And when David got 5 smooth stones from the creek, the legend is the reason. Do you know why he got 5? I mean, if he really trusted God, that God was going to get him, how many stones would he need? 1. Okay? Why did he get 5? Anybody know? Well, the legend was that Goliath had 4 sons.
One for each of them.
David didn't come to play. The Philistine came on and drew near to David with his shield bearer in front of him. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance, but still a youth. The Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Now, his god is named Dagon. Okay? That was the Philistine god, Dagon. Or Dagon. Okay? Which we'll bring out a little later. Okay. The Philistine said to David, come to me and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the field. But David said to the Philistine, you come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. We tend to leave that out of the Sunday school lessons when we teach children. And I will give the dead bodies of the Philistine army this very day to the birds of the air and the wild animals of the earth, so that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not save by sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into my hand. Well, they're both going into it a little bit confident, right? All right. And, if you're going to battle, that's how you should. When the Philistine drew nearer to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag, took out a stone, slung it, and struck the Philistine in his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, striking down the Philistine and killing him. There was no sword in David's hand. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine. He grasped his sword, drew it out of its sheath, and killed him, then cut off his head. So Goliath didn't die from getting hit in the head. He got knocked out. And then David finished him off. Now, I'm wondering what happened to Goliath's armor bearer during all of this. Not a very good job description for him.
He ran and hid somewhere.
Yeah, you see Goliath go down, it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be standing out here in front of the army.
I got your back. Mine's
Yeah,
way back.
way back. That's exactly right. All right. When the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. The troops of Israel and Judah rose up with a shout and pursued the Philistines as far as Gath and the gates of Ekron, so that the wounded Philistines fell on the way from Sha'araim as far as Gath and Ekron. The Israelites came back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camp. David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem. He put it in his tent. I don't know that I want to be sleeping with the head of Goliath, but that's okay. When Saul saw David go out against the Philistines, he said to Abner, the commander of his army, "Abner, whose son is this young man?" Abner said, "As your soul lives, O king, I do not know." The king said, "I inquire whose son the young man is." And on David's return from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. Saul said to him, "Whose son are you, young man?" And David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse the Bethlehemite." All right. That's kind of interesting because he doesn't say, "Who is this kid?" He says, "Who's his old man?" Okay? So what you're looking at is, you're looking at Saul not interested just in rewarding his champion, he's also interested in rewarding the family of David as well. Okay? All right, now, this is such a good story, I decided to write a rap about it. And for those of you listening in online who've never heard this, and some of our guests, we're going to give it a try, okay? It's called Goliath. I say hey, hey. I say hey, hey. I say hey, hey, yeah. My name's Goliath from the town of Gath. Better step aside and feel my wrath. I'm big and bad and I'm awful mean. Don't mess with me. I'm a Philistine. I'm 10 feet tall, give or take a cubit. You want to fight me? You got to be stupid. Got an armor plate from head to toe. Got a big old sword to lay you low. Got a spear with a shaft like a weaver's beam. Don't y'all wish you were on my team? I say hey, hey. I say hey, hey. I say hey, hey, yeah. I'm bringing you pain because I'm here to fight the best and the baddest Israelite. I'm bringing y'all a world of sorrow. If no one shows, I'll be back tomorrow. So send some fool to make my day. If he beats me, we all go away. But if I win, I'm sure you all know you'll be our slaves, and then we'll show our daggone God has won the title. By the end of the day, you'll worship our idol. Say hey, hey. I say hey, hey. I say hey, hey, yeah. Now, who's this kid stealing all my joy? I want to fight a man, but they sent me a boy. I'm covered in bronze. I got armor for bling. This kid's got nothing but a puny little sling. Hey, kid, why don't you go home to your mama? Go tend your sheep or be a farmer. You say you killed a lion and a bear. I'm bigger than that, and I don't scare. So you think your God's going to make your win? Well, my daggone God is wearing a grin. So swing your sling and send me a stone. Now, it's too late. You ain't going home because I'm Goliath from the town of Gath, and you, Davy boy, going to feel my... So now we will see how David gets rewarded from the king. Okay? God bless you all. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.
And welcome to the class.